Welcome, everyone. We're about to get started. Thank you for being here. It's exciting. And I see that we are just about live on YouTube. I will make sure and mute that so I don't have double sound happening. But since we're almost at 6 o'clock, we'll start in a moment. Okay, welcome everyone to our third event on the WeHo Reads Road to Joy. We are live on both Zoom and on Facebook. And I want to say welcome to everyone, wherever you are, whenever you are. Some of you may be with us live, some of you may be watching us on the replay. Thank you for tuning in. And I just want to say a brief word about how I was introduced to Women Who Submit before I hand it over to Xochitl, who will then lead us through the event. I think it was Sakaya Manning who originally introduced us in advance of an event we were going to do together. And then I have a very fond memories of us on the last podcast that Bookswell produced. We met in San Antonio at AWP, looking out over the canals and talking about Accolades, the previous anthology. And then now we're here to celebrate the next anthology together. So it feels like a really nice kind of return in full circle. I had bought Xochitl's book of poetry a while back, Posada, Offerings of Witness and Refuge. And in the package came this wonderful candle of the Virgen de Guadalupe. And so tonight I want to light that candle in honor of Xochitl and Women Who Submit, and to thank them for all the work they're doing to build community in Los Angeles and beyond, and for writers everywhere. So this is a big flame of gratitude. And with that, Xochitl, please take it away.
Thank you, Cody. I also remember that you came to our big book launch, our first ever book launch at AWP. And then we went and had barbecue after. So that was a good time. But thank you for
the barbecue,
having
yes.
us. Yes, don't forget about the barbecue. So thank you for having us. I'm going to begin with a little explanation of what tonight's going to be about. So March 14th, 2020, Women Who Submit plan to host our regular monthly in-person submission party, a co-working space for submitting to publication in real time at Parrot House, a brother-sister-owned work and event space in Echo Park. But when it looked like we would have to cancel due to lockdown orders, a WWS member suggested moving the event online. From that day forward, and for the next 13 months, WWS held a Saturday check-in, a community circle hosted over Zoom on a weekly basis. In tonight's program, you will see some tools we cultivated together throughout 2020 that helped us find joy despite our isolation, which we now offer to you and your communities. Today, the Saturday check-in continues on a bi-monthly schedule and is facilitated by a small committee of our members. One way we used the check-ins was as a place to practice land acknowledgements, but we soon understood how they could become performative. From this work, we decided that acknowledgements should be ever-changing, with input from community members and current events, and to be most impactful, include a call to action. Today's acknowledgement was created in collaboration with WeHo Reads presenters and partners. Let us begin by acknowledging the contributions of the Tongva, Quiche, and Chumash people of the greater Los Angeles area, a place many present call home. In reflection of International Women's Day and Women's Month, let us also acknowledge Native American women's contributions to upholding the health of our land and culture, including Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, Laguna Pueblo, U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo, Muscogee Creek Nation, and storyteller and activist Sarah Eaglehart, Oglala Lakota. We recognize that violence against Native women is disproportionately higher than other groups within our country, and response to crimes against Native women disproportionately lower. We ask those in community with us today to take action by donating to the National Indigenous Women's Center and helping end violence against Native women. You can now find the link to the National Indigenous Women's Center in the chat, thanks to our hosts. And now I'm going to pass it to Thea Puchel, who is going to lead us in an exercise.
Thank you, Sochi, for providing the land acknowledgement with actionable steps that we can all take today. So we're going to begin by either softening our gaze or closing our eyes. And then inhaling through the nose. And then exhaling through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Return your breath back to your normal. We're going to do 3 more breaths. In through the nose and out through the nose. Inhaling through the nose. And exhaling through the nose. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the nose. And allowing your eyes to flutter open. Inhale, swoop your arms up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, round through your upper back. And exhale, back up. And release your palms to your lap. Bring your hands to heart, interlacing your fingers. Inhale, arms up this time. Exhale, round back. Hands to heart. We're going to take our thumbs and our pointer fingers and bring them together. We're going to interlock them. And we're going to send our elbows out to the edges of the room and lengthen our spine, creating an opening in the upper back and the upper chest. And then we're going to take our thumb and our middle finger and do the same, lengthening, inhaling and exhaling. Elbows out to the side. And then taking our thumb and our ring finger, our weakest link, and pulling, lengthening through the spine, sending the elbows out to the side, inhaling and exhaling. Then our thumb and our pinkies, interlinking them, lengthening through the spine, sending the elbows out, inhaling and exhaling. Take the left hand forward, or whichever hand you prefer, and then take the other hand in front and gently guide the fingers back, lengthening through your spine still. And then switching hands and bringing the other hand on top, sending those fingers back, inhaling and exhaling. Inhale your arms overhead, exhale hands to heart, send the elbows out to the side, inhale fingertips up, exhale slide the shoulder blades down the back and around. Then take the left or right arm, whichever you prefer, forward, and take the other hand on top of the forearm. Send the elbow forward and send the other elbow out, lengthening through the spine. Taking 3 breaths here. You can close your eyes or keep them open. Final breath. And then opening your elbows out again to the side and to cactus arms. Inhale, fingertips up. Exhale, slide the shoulder blades down the back, rounding forward. Bring the other arm in front, hand on the forearm. Send the elbow forward and the other elbow out to the side, lengthening through the spine. 3 breaths. Final breath. Then inhale the arms overhead, looking up, following the gaze of the fingertips down to your lap, and either allow your eyes to close or for them to soften. So choosing either to close your eyes or soften your gaze, bring your attention to your breath. Where is the movement of your breath going? Has it already arrived? Is it a breath that stops at the base of the throat? Is it a breath that travels to the mid-chest? Is it a deep breath that travels all the way down to the abdomen? Where is the breath? Where does it gather? Notice the sensation behind the back of your eyelids if they are closed, or the sensation of a soft focus. Does the light play? Do shapes take form? Do the images and sensations gather or remain separate? Bring your attention back to breath. The inhale, the exhale. Where do they meet? Notice the sensation in your mouth, the placement of the tongue, the roof of the mouth, the floor, how the saliva gathers. Bring your attention back to breath. Imagine, picture, or pretend that you are able to travel to your deepest depths, allowing colors, textures, tastes, sounds, smells, or concepts to guide you. Perhaps it is bright and colorful, or a peaceful dark space. Going deeper to the place where all ideas and wishes form. Allow your innermost wish to take shape and form. Give it permission to bubble up to your conscious mind. Speak it to yourself in threes, in the positive present tense, as if it were already so. Gather the wish and hold it dear. Then release it into the beyond for manifestation, actualization, or maybe just a seed for the future. Bring your attention back to breath. Where does it gather? Is it a breath that travels all the way to the abdomen? Is it a breath that travels to the mid-chest? Is it a breath that travels to the throat? Gather your awareness back into your body, back into your breath, into the room or space you inhabit. Allow your eyes to open to a wide awake state. Gather your awareness and bring it back to the present. Inhale, swooping your arms up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, swoop the arms up. Exhale, hands to heart, interlacing the fingers, rounding through that upper back. And then come back to a comfortable seated position. Now to lead us through how WWS gathered during the pandemic, I'll hand it over to Hazel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thea. That grounding was so vital. I'm going to start with a quote by Amanda Gorman, featured in the Women Who Submit Anthology gathering. Under congested incandescence of pulsing city, the world bends itself into a village. Here, our great gathering place. Thank you all for joining us today. Women Who Submit was the first place in those early uncertain days of pandemic that showed how Zoom can be a great gathering place. We'd like you all to experience the structure of our Women Who Submit Saturday check-ins. These were a lifeline to so many writers during the wilderness of pandemic. And as Sochi mentioned, it went on for 13 months, week after week. So please take a moment to get something to write with for a quick activity. And after, you will have a chance to post your ideas if you choose, with a link that will be provided by our hosts.
For Zoom realness, I invited my cat, if y'all have seen her.
I thought that was perfect. And I also noticed that we're much better dressed than we usually were on our Saturday morning check-ins. Like we weren't all disheveled, rolling out of bed.
Yeah, my hair is like dried, washed and dried, like both things. Wow.
I am definitely not in my pajamas. So yeah, we stepped it up. All right, so you've gotten something to write with. Please join us out there. And so we're going to do a little time traveling first. Think back on the last 2 years since March of 2020. You have, among many other things, so far managed to survive a global pandemic. Good job. So right now, take a minute to reflect on some of your accomplishments from the last 2 years. They can be personal, creative, or professional accomplishments, and really celebrate yourself. If 2 years feels too unwieldy, try just last week. What did you accomplish personally, creatively, or professionally last week? Take 1 minute. All right, 2 years is a lot to try and capture in a minute, so this activity can be continued. But I'm going to ask our members here, anybody feel like sharing an accomplishment from the last 2 years or the last week? Thanks, Flint.
So I've got, over the past 2 years, like over the past year, a couple of really big things. So I found my biological mother. And my first book, memoir called Blood, found a home at Jamii Press, and it's going to be published in September.
Yay.
Thanks to you all.
Oh, thank you, Flint, for letting us celebrate that with you and seeing it through the process. Oof, amazing. All right, Thea.
I finished my first novel and built a collection of short stories and did my first residency. And thanks to all of you.
Yay. Congratulations, Thea. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, finishing a novel, finishing one. Imagine. Eureka.
I took the secondary just this week prompt. And I was able to read aloud 30 pages of the manuscript, and get myself up and out of bed this morning for actually 3 mornings. So yes, 30 pages.
Awesome. Congratulations. Early mornings are vital. All right, so we're going to move on to our next step, and hopefully we'll hear from our other folks after that one. So for this next step, consider your goals. So what do you want to accomplish this coming week for your personal, creative, or professional life? What tangible goals can you set to hold yourself accountable? Take 1 minute. All right, come to a pause. Can we get some goals shared out? All right, Tisha.
I don't know why it's so hard for me to unmute. So I have 4 main goals. I hope to make a good showing at the Mayday Magazine Flash Fiction March Madness tournament that starts next week. I want to finish typing the draft of my dissertation, chapter 1, because I write everything out by hand, and complete my alt-ac job applications and my SCBWI work in progress application.
Awesome, Tisha. You got this. All right, Sochi.
So in 2020, it was really hard for me to read. I think other people had that experience. Like, I don't know, I've maybe read 5 books, if that. So at the beginning of the year, I wanted to read 3 books a month, 1 nonfiction, 1 poetry, 1 fiction. And so I started again this year, tried to go back to that this year. And I started, January was good. February, I read 1 book and I haven't read anything yet. So number 1 goal is to read something. And then reading, with that comes writing. I've been journaling every day, trying to kind of doing some grounding exercises and processing some stuff right now. So I just want to keep journaling and trying to write crappy poems, like 1 crappy poem a day, and just continue to be gentle with myself as I'm going through stuff, just I'm gonna keep being good job when I do 1 thing. So that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sochi. All right, so we're going to do 1 last piece here. So for the next minutes, I'm going to ask you all to consider the community that supports you, whether it's your family or your friends, your creative community, or your professional community. Write down something you are grateful for to this community and reflect on how they've supported you. And then also, what might you need from them to achieve some of your goals? Write down what you need. Take a minute. All right, come to a pausing point on those needs and your gratitude for your community. I'm going to share something I need. So I have this like octopus of a podcast, and I really need a partner to help me clearly think through how I've done so far. And so I'm looking for that. And I know that step one is saying it here. So that's one of my needs. And that podcast was born with you all. You heard me first say, I think I want to try this. So you've helped me make this thing actually exist. Anybody else need to share a need before we jump to our poem? Tisha.
I actually want to share a gratitude that's also a need. Gratitude for Sochi, who always serves as my reference for all my job applications, and will testify to the work I've done with Women Who Submit. Also, like, really pumps me up and makes me feel like I've done a lot more than the work I've actually done. So I just wanted to share that gratitude and ongoing need too.
Beautiful. The cat weighs in. All right. Thank you, Tisha. Thea.
I also wanted to make a point of gratitude. I don't know how many people submit and then feel like they suck. I used to do that once or twice a year. And then I joined Women Who Submit and I realized I don't suck that bad. And I joined in 2019, so I was still rather a neophyte. But no, I was doing my portfolio the other day and I realized that 36 of my writing credits were created during my time with Women Who Submit. So,
Oh my God.
Thank you. You made me brave enough to like keep submitting and keep getting told no.
Oh my gosh, that is tremendous. 36. Thea. Oh my gosh, you've been busy. Beautiful.
May I share something?
Please.
Y'all are amazing and crazy productive, and you just inspire me. So that I'm grateful to all of you for that. And I'm also grateful that in these check-ins, sometimes it would be like, you know, our successes or something from the week would be like, I woke up, I got myself out of bed. And so I'm getting emotional. So I'm grateful to you all that like, there's always space to also just like, you know, rest and be kind to yourself. I mean, all of it comes together, and I just appreciate right now that that's a need I'm feeling right now. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Sochi.
And the cat has thoughts.
All right, so we're going to move ahead. These three things, accomplishments, goals, and needs, formed the structure of Women Who Submit's Saturday virtual check-ins, which began, as Sochi mentioned, on March 14th, 2020. Every Saturday morning thereafter, members met via Zoom and would take turns doing a grounding activity, offering a creative writing prompt, or just a dance party. And we would share a little joy in those challenging times in that process. After the opening, members facilitated a check-in just like we did right now on accomplishments, goals, and needs. Everyone stepped up to facilitate this space and keep us connected. Whatever our strengths or passions or quirks, that was what we offered. When we had been at it for 3 months, I led our gathering in a writing prompt, similar to what we just did. Write an ode to what this community has given you during these wild months of quarantine. So members wrote, many of them are here today, and they shared their words. And then I curated a collective poem to celebrate our gathering. And we called it Ahoy, Women Who Submit. And we are going to share that with you now. Can I just get a thumbs up from the readers? Places, everyone. All right, we're unmuted. We learned how to do Zoom together, yes. All right. Ahoy, Women Who Submit, a collaborative poem map by members of Women Who Submit's Saturday virtual check-in, launched at dawn of pandemic, by Melissa Chadburn, Desiree Zamorano, Sochi Julissa Bermejo, Lisa Chibi, Daria Topusis, Flint, Amanda L. Andre, Colette Sartor, Charnel Blevins, VK Lynn, Sibel Garcia Cole, Carla Sameth, Lisbeth Koyman, Valerie Burns, and Noriko Nakata. Curated by me, Hazel Kite Witham.
Ahoy, as used on ships, was used as the first telephone greeting. Back in 1889, Central Telephone Exchange operators were known as hello girls because of the association between the greeting and the telephone.
Ahoy, women who submit, these mornings sinking under the weight of extraordinary, now rendered ordinary.
Now rendered ordinary. Today, I made coffee, wondering if I should save a cup for our time together. I cut fruit, read through my journal, wrote new words. This is how I prepared for you. This is how I remember I am real, we are connected, and time is sacred.
Time is sacred. This, our respite, a brief breath of rest, relief from sea of sorrow. From Latin, respectus, refuge, consideration. How we respect us, streaming through the torrents. We are sail and propeller and rudder. We are this blessed wind guiding us through storm. This respite becomes refuge from inertia.
Refuge from inertia. I thought I wasn't worthy, but you left a window cracked for me, and I slipped through guiltily, prepared to sit quietly in a corner. Instead, you invited me into the circle. You poured me a drink, and you made me realize that I never really left.
You made me realize that I never really left. Ahoy, hello girls, women, badass, feminist, womanist touchstones. We touchstones, assaying tool, to assay, to try, endeavor, strive, to essay, to experiment, venture. Even just writing this is movement, breath, inward, outward, through. Together, inside respite, we remember writing is the solace, the struggle, the shadow, and the light, this breath that always matters.
This breath that always matters. You let me clear my throat. You let me stretch my hands. Listen, someone is unmuted. I hear birds chirping from their room into mine.
From their room into mine, over 225 days, this space has been mapped to new world that came barreling in without invitation, without instructions, until we, ahoy women, we touchstones, began cartography together, mapping, accomplishments, to celebrate, to commemorate, goals. Where are you voyaging next? Where will your words go? Needs. How can we star spell each other through?
How can we star spell each other through? After living years isolated through too much trauma, depression, loss of hope, I'm now a member of this crew of accomplished, bright, powerful, formidable women.
This crew of accomplished, bright, powerful, formidable women. Ahoy, girls. Come here to this mosaic of women, land somewhere that keeps celebrating, keeps centering, keeps keeping us whole. Ahoy, touchstones.
Ahoy, touchstones. You remind me of the times that I have fallen in love with me, with what I am supposed to be, me, all of me, every bit of me. These Saturday morning jaunts forever recenter me in the things that fill my soul. My writing redirects my soul.
My writing redirects my soul. These cells are breath and music and joy, marking the weeks, mapping pages and poems and possibility. During a year intent on anchoring all our levity, we joy and promise and ask all sail and propeller and rudder and wind, guiding us through storm.
Guiding us through storm, this time a blessing. I am learning, finally, to carve out my own existence and annex for myself, me alone, through community, through shared space, seeing front page value, where I once only saw margins.
Where I once only saw margins. Ahoy, community, collecting on solitary days, women, power, strength. Words bleed from heavy eyes. Words exhale from tired lungs. Words wind out from spools on our tongues, float in the air from one vessel to the next, binding us together, making us powerful. Ahoy, women.
Ahoy, women. Before this, Saturday mornings were a zone of loss, the loose change of my mind, unspent, squandered.
My mind, unspent, squandered. But now, behold the riches, the richness that sustains and carries. During the week away, we write words and bon voyage them into the world to map their own way, find their own home.
To map their own way, find their own home. This group galvanizes as lockdown lengthens and anxiety heightens. I would have mired myself in the worsening news of the world, but this group, strong, devoted, determined, wildly talented women, has kept me focused and settled, has allowed me to remember the joy of creation, the power of it, the necessity.
The power of it, the necessity. A structure for the confined lives of unshowered writers, no longer adrift, gathering to manifest intentions, snapping fingers, jazzing hands, waving off anxiety, pulling inside sweaty masks, latex gloves, holding accountability through despair and uncertainty. Tears washed by dark coffee, boldly laced with hope, acknowledging land and losses, uprising and revolution. Ahoy, women.
Ahoy, women. Even while I stumble over these words of gratitude, let's just say mil gracias and love for all this space has given me, us.
For all this space has given me, us. Ahoy, women. Look how we make land together. Map these discouraging, divided times. Make community across wonder of air, buoy and breath in these high seas. Safe haven, respite, touchstone and lifeline as we sail our words out to map something new. Wow. Thank you all for listening. That was beautiful. And now here's Cody to talk
Wow.
about the series.
Wow. Oh, some of those lines are sticking with me. Thank you so much for the performance, for the energy to put that together, for all of that creativity. Getting my breath back a little bit. That was lovely. So it's my job now to do the necessary, as I've heard it said. I want to thank the City of West Hollywood for making this event and this series possible. Their arts division is so committed to high quality programming, and we are excited to be part of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This event is also made possible by our sponsors and media partners, all of whom are excellent and mostly LA-based organizations. We have the UCLA Extension Writers Program, which I think, Sochi, you might be teaching there at this point, right?
UCLA Extension?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So we've got all these connections happening in our community. They are a financial sponsor. We are very thankful for them. We are also thankful for poets and writers who have made a mini grant available to help support this program. And to our media partners, you'll see in the chat, we're dropping links to Book Soup, where you can buy both Accolades and Gathering and Posada and many of the books that are available from the participating writers tonight. We are also grateful to bookshop.org and to the Los Angeles Review of Books for helping us spread the word about these events. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Mike Che from the City of West Hollywood Arts Department. who wants to say a few words about the series and about West Hollywood's commitment to the arts, which makes all of this possible.
Hi, I'm Mike Che with the City of West Hollywood's Arts Division. I want to thank all of the women who submit for inviting us into your world, sharing your Saturday morning practices. I really wish that I had a community like that to see me through the lockdown and keep me grounded and sane and committed to my work. So I really appreciate the kind of community that you have created. And it's wonderful to be reminded how art can bring us together, can help us with our well-being. Thank you to Thea for that wonderful guided meditation exercise at the beginning. And of course, Cody Cisco Bookswell, who's the producer for our WeHo Read series and who designed the Road to Joy theme, which is all about well-being and resilience. Of course, our City Council of West Hollywood, none of them could attend today, but I know that they have their best wishes for you. They are the ones who they voted on the funding for this. And so it's the major funding for this program. And so it's so wonderful that they see the need to fund a program that allows people who love literature and poetry to connect and come together and create this space. Also, we are almost in April, which is National Poetry Month. So I'm going to do a quick plug for that. We celebrate all month long. We hang poetry banners up along Santa Monica Boulevard honoring living poets. There's almost 50 who are honored. And the two new poets this year will be Amanda Gorman. You heard Hazel read a wonderful poem by Amanda, who's brilliant, earlier in the program. And then the other person is Shihan Van Cleef, who organizes the Poetry Lounge and over at Fairfax High. Also, our city poet laureate, Brian Sonia Wallace, will be reading a new poem at our council meeting on April 4th, and also has curated an event that'll be part of our WeHo Read series on April 6th, 6 p.m. It's called Trans Future Poetics, features two established trans poets, Raika Aoki, who does a lot of work with Beyond Baroque, and who was honored on our banners last year, and then also a poet named Harry Josephine Giles, who's amazing. I heard them read last year and it blew my mind. So please come to that. They're paired with two younger trans poets, and it'll be a really interesting conversation on April 6th. But I will stop taking up space in this room and thank you all for your wonderful work and words, and just love this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I think we're going to now hear from Women Who Submit editing team about putting together the anthology gathering and all of the fascinating and fun discussions I'm sure you had about how to make a book during a pandemic, which I know is not the easiest thing.
Thank you, Cody. So first I want to recognize all the Women Who Submit folks who are here with us. Thank you all for joining us and being a part of this and being a part of this and being a part of this through all this time together. We see you, we appreciate you, we love you. So there's that. And then I just want to talk a little bit about, so we've been talking about, March 14th, it was literally right at the start. Oops, I forgot, I was supposed to time myself. March 14th, it was right at the start of everything. They had just announced schools were going to close. We had a public event planned, and then we're like, okay, let's just go online. And Women Who Submit from the start was really amazing because we were hybrid. We had been hybrid since like 2017. We were actually Skyping people in. We'd Skyped Flint in before to a meeting. We had done a talk at Avenue 50 where the speaker was in Chicago, I believe, and we Skyped them in for our talk. So we've been hybrid for a while. So it was actually pretty easy for us to just go online, which was nice and also really surprising. I think we were really surprised, especially in 2020, everything we were able to do and like that we didn't have to cancel anything. We're just like, wow, how are we doing this? And then in 2021, it was more like, okay, let's slow down and relax because this is too much. And we've done too much and let's just really think about what's important. So that's kind of how it was working. But I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about like before March 2020, because Women Who Submit is now 11 years old. Yay! We were founded by Alice Dixon, Ashaki Jackson, and myself in 2011. And it changed a lot over that time, but something that happened, I believe it was 2017, we got a grant from Center for Cultural Innovations, and it was our first grant we ever got. And in that grant, I wrote it and I said, okay, you're giving us money to do these submission parties. We send work out. We help people send work out. And in grants, they always ask like, well, how are you going to prove what you're doing? So I said, okay, well, as proof, we'll create an anthology, and we'll create an anthology of all the work that was published in this time that was published in other places. And that became Accolades, and why it's called Accolades. And this came out in 2020. So it was kind of like a report card. Everything that's in this anthology was published in another journal. And so it was really cool to see all the different journals that were accepting work from our members. It was cool to see it all together in one place, and that we could celebrate it, our accolades, right? And so that was our very first anthology, and it came because of that grant. And March 2020 was our big release party. Oh, and I should mention that also it was co-managed, edited by Tisha Reichley Aguilera and Rachel Warecki. And we were excited for AWP 2020. We're like, oh man, we have our very first anthology. We're gonna go out. We got, we partnered with a woman-owned bar in San Antonio for a big event. We partnered with Libro Mobile for a table. We were gonna do tabling and signing and all this stuff, and we were super excited. And we did that. We went out. It was a little hectic, but we did go out, and we had our big event. Cody came. That was cool. And Tish and I, on one day, there was a lot of people not at AWP, there was a lot of tables not being used. So Tish and I one day just commandeered a table, and we put out a sign, and we're like, we're selling anthologies, who wants some? So that was really fun. And so it was exciting, but then we got home, and then, when we got home, everything changed and everything closed down. We were going to have our LA release at Skylight and Skylight Books, which was also very exciting. Women Who Submit has never presented at Skylight. That was going to be our first time at Skylight Books, for us in LA. That's huge, right? So we were really excited for that. That had to be changed. It was never canceled, which again, I'm very proud of, right? Thanks to Sakai Manning and our leadership team, instead of canceling, we ended up making it an online Instagram release. And so our contributors recorded themselves reading from their pieces, and then Sakai Manning released those on our Instagram account. So, things were just shifting really fast and constantly. And then these check-ins that we're sharing with you all, like those were really developing into something. And we were really excited that that space was giving us something that we didn't know we could create. We didn't know what it would do. We just started it, right? We just said like, oh, let's all hang out, I guess, online. And then like, as weeks went by, we were like, oh, this is something, this is important. And so, yeah, and from that's where our second anthology came in, right? Like, what is this about? What is this we're doing on Zoom? What is this about? Hazel mentioned that one of the questions we would ask was, how would you help each other? And that became so huge, like giving each other permission to ask for help was huge. And then giving ourselves permission to like say something, and that people would actually step up. And so that was kind of the culture we were creating. And my time is up. So then I'm going to pass it over to Tisha on how that pivot from Accolades, our report card, to gathering a whole new idea, how that came along.
Thank you, Sochi. We did have a lot of fun in San Antonio. Sochi and I were also neighbors in San Antonio at these really cute casitas. And in spite of it being a smaller AWP, I think we managed to have a lot of fun at all of our events. And I'm very grateful to Sakai for my first ever Instagram recording. Like that was a huge accomplishment for me. I need to remember to add that to my list of accomplishments. So Sochi mentioned that Women Who Submit started at the kitchen table. And I think that gathering our anthology, you all were holding yours up and I was like, oh wait. And then I was just too late to hold mine up when y'all did the first time. that Sochi mentioned this, that we gathered at her parents' kitchen table. And that really, one of the quotes that was submitted by one of our contributors was from Joy Harjo's poem, "Perhaps the World Ends Here." And that poem opens with the phrase, "The world begins at a kitchen table." And so I feel like it was really important to include Joy in our anthology. And this beautiful cover designed by Rachel Warecki, this anthology really embraced our community's response to the pandemic shutdown. We continued, as Sochi mentioned, gathering to nurture each other's creativity in a variety of ways, some of which have already been mentioned, like the Saturday check-in. There were people gathering virtually, gathering outdoors, and still supporting each other through the creative process. With that in mind, the work that we solicited for gathering spoke to the current conditions of the world. We wanted to know about the different ways women and non-binary writers were coping with trauma and ways that they were celebrating their joy. I suggested that this theme could also help us with what Joy Harjo calls the kitchen table. She calls it a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. Because I think that we have to acknowledge those horrors that were going on around us, not just the pandemic, but what was going on in the borderlands, the proliferation of police brutality in this country, all of these horrors in our world, but also what these pieces of writing do, these stories and poems and essays and monologues from our members, they offer hope in the face of these unprecedented challenges. Unlike Accolades, which was only previously published, Gathering also included new stories, essays, poems, and with Gathering, we added the category of drama. There are a couple of monologues, a couple of play excerpts. Did I say that word right? Excerpts. From 45 members. And these are members from New York, New Jersey, Chicago, San Antonio, the San Francisco Bay Area, Long Beach, the West Side of Los Angeles, and our Los Angeles chapters. So these pieces focus on the ways that we've resisted and persisted and thrived throughout the pandemic as a community of creative women and non-binary writers. So throughout this process, as some of you know, I do things, but I usually only do them when Sochi tells me to do them. Sochi says, hey, let's do this. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do it. Tell me what to do. But one of the things that we talked about that Sochi and I collaborated on is how we could make Gathering a mentoring opportunity. So for Accolades, the leadership team served as the editorial team. And with Gathering, each of the previous genre editors then selected another member from our community to mentor, to collaborate with, and to share the responsibility of editing each genre. Once, and in just a moment, Noriko and Flint will talk more about that collaborative process, working together as the nonfiction editors. And the last thing I want to say is how honored I was to sit again around a table. It wasn't in Noriko's kitchen. It was just outside the kitchen door on her back patio. But to gather around that table, you know, really being true to our origins, being true to what Joy Harjo says. And each genre team shared, and I like to use little scraps of paper because I'm old school, you know, and shared which pieces they thought should open the anthology, which pieces should anchor the anthology at the end. A strategy that I learned from one of our partners, Sarah Rafael Garcia, who has guided me through this managing editor anthology process a great deal. And together we curated this completed anthology so that it tells the story about the ways in which we gather. I'll let Noriko and Flint give you some more information about how it was working as a collaborative editorial team.
Working under the guidance of Tisha was everything, right, Tisha?
Absolutely.
I think that's so interesting that you talked about it as a mentorship. I saw it more as a collaboration with Flint, just because I'm pretty new to editing. Like Accolades was my first opportunity to edit, and that gave me, I got to work with Ryan and someone else. I can't remember. There were two. Anyway, other folks helped with the editing process for Accolades. And so then when we decided to kind of build capacity amongst our members, first of all, I learned so much editing Accolades about, talk about demystifying the slush pile, really understanding what editors are reading for, but also realizing that this is a couple of people reading your work, and it is amazing work, and you can't take it all. And so really being able to internalize the fact that when you get a pass on your work, when you get one of those motivation letters, it just says this one time, this isn't gonna work for us, but it is so not a reflection of the quality of the work or the importance of that voice. It's not personal.
It's just not
and
personal.
So it was so great to get to connect with Flint in our check-ins, because Flint relocated. Flint came to a Women Who Submit submission party in person in Ryan's kitchen before she moved up to Portland. And then we were able to reconnect with her in the Saturday morning check-ins. And then one of Thea's readings, I remember hearing Flint read some of her nonfiction, blew me away. And so when we were asked to tap someone to go to nonfiction, I thought, what a great opportunity to work with Flint and hear some new voices and work together to edit. Flint, what was your experience like?
It was terrible, start to finish. It was just one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life. No, it was phenomenal. It was a terrific opportunity. I was so just kind of awed and thrilled when Noriko reached out and asked, would you co-edit this? And I had done editing work, but not at this scale, and not for an anthology, like individual pieces for people. And so to have the opportunity to work with someone who'd been through the process before, and I feel like we've just partnered really well together. It was a really great process to talk through the work and to see what struck me, what struck Noriko, where we had common ground, where we found common ground, all the conversations that we had, the things that all the decisions, like just realizing in the same way that writing is hundreds of decisions all the time, every single word, the order they go in, the punctuation you're using, like it's the same process in a different way with editing. Right? It's just all these decisions. Can we take this piece? If we take this piece, what can't we take? How do they work together? And how do we come up with something that then works with what the other editors are doing? So it was a fantastic process. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed putting those puzzle pieces together.
And then
I forgot to set my timer, Sochi.
oh,
I had it all prepped to set my 5-minute timer and I forgot.
And then maybe as contributors, Thea and Hazel, you want to share what the experience was like for you? Hi, Gabe.
we had to have a sighting, Gabe sighting.
Thea, do you want to go first?
You can go first, Hazel.
So, putting together the Ahoy collaborative poem that mapped these ways that we saw each other through was really wonderful. And I was very, very excited that Tisha was like, we're thinking about putting it at the front of the book, like first thing, like maybe right after the intro. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect, because it really captured the ode to this community. So that's what, and then Noriko and I, one of the ways that we tried to stay connected as writers during the process was we wrote sort of poem postcards back and forth, inspired by Ada Limon and Natalie Diaz. They had a poem correspondence. So we got to put that in there, and that was a great way to show like how writers were staying connected. Thanks, Tisha. All right, Thea, you had time to think about it.
I had the easiest role. I just submitted and y'all said yes to me. That is all I did. But when I was doing the interview for Spectrum One with Amy, I was saying that I had submitted to Accolades and I wasn't selected. And she's like, oh, wait, there's a selection process? And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of brilliant, brilliant writers. And like, to get in is just such an honor. That's all I got.
I was thinking, I recently wrote a grant, again, more grants for us, right? And Flynn thankfully gave me some notes, and I had no brain power left. And she's like, you haven't talked at all about how the pandemic has specifically hurt women. And I'm like, I have no brain power left, Flynn, like, what do you want? And then I read some articles, and, it really just hit me that it's just so interesting because we all work together so well. We all know what we're doing without having to say what we're doing. We know why this is important without always having to say it. So it was just interesting to like read some articles and remember why this work is so important, and that like the way we've now created our own publications, how that's important, because even though we're helping each other go up, but we're also learning laterally, and we're publishing ourselves and we're teaching ourselves, and it just like gives me goosebumps. And I'm just so lucky to work with all of y'all. Like, it's amazing. Did anybody?
And can I just add that like the collaborative non-patriarchal structure of both the anthology and the way that this organization builds capacity amongst members, that the leadership is so shared, is a really, like, in terms of rebuilding better, like, let us be a model, folks. This is how you change organizational structures. This is how you can make spaces feel safe and build better as we reopen post, I don't know, or in endemic, whatever we're in.
And just to also say that we do that within our organization, but we are also very fortunate to have a lot of supporters from outside our organization. Those of you who have a copy of Gathering of your own, and if you don't, you can buy one on the link that Lauren put in the chat. We have support from Dana Johnson and Cody Sisko, David Rockland, Victoria Chang, and Kathleen Gallegos, all of whom have worked with us on various projects over the years. And our organization would not have grown the way it has in the last 10 years without that external support as well. And I think it's really a testament to the way that we work and the way that we include other people in our web, if you will, of Gathering.
And how we also invite people within our community to take on different roles. I mean, I guess we kind of said that, but I just wanted to give Thea an opportunity to talk about the open mic that they started during the pandemic. Thea, would you like to talk about that?
All right. So I had not done a public reading since the 90s, and I decided it was time to put my big kid chonies on and do a public reading. And then the pandemic hit. And I thought, of course, I decided this is the year I'm going to do it. Because the last time I had done it was like at the Black Pearl in Pismo Beach in like 1994. And I was horrified because everyone's like, oh, it was so sad. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I talked to Sochi about like, hey, can we do an open mic? And she was gracious enough to say yes. And so this is actually like the second time this event here where I've read publicly to an open forum. The first one was when we did the Submit One back in September. But it's just such a lovely event that happens. Everyone who's on the panel, I believe, has been there to the open mic and has either been a reader or a listener or both. And I mean, it is such an honor because all the work always blows me away. And I get to hold that space. And it's also, I think it's amazing when we do a reading, because it's a closed reading, to see those works that make it out into the world and see they get the recognition and the publication they deserve. And so we've been doing it nonstop, with the exception of like a couple breaks, like for one, like what, maybe 3 months or 4 months for the last 2 years. And the work continues to be beautiful, and it's wonderful to hold that space.
Can I just speak to the web that I think, Tisha, you just said, like on my paper, I just made like this web of, camera, of all the different like offshoots that came out of this work over the last 2 years. And then also I have to shout out the workshops that you all put together. I still quote people from the workshops, like, and think about how, Melissa Chadburn talking to us about our literary citizenship and writing book reviews, Andrea Gutierrez and like her like futbolistas story and how we support each other.
2-2. It's 2-2. It's always 2-2.
So there, I mean, and then we've got Writing Alone Together, which Lisbeth Koyman started, and then others supported twice a day. I mean, it's so wide. And I think that comes so much from like this space to be able to say our needs and to then step up for one another.
I think some of you know that the play that's excerpted in here, it wasn't going well until that the workshop that Rocio and Rachel did, that attendance workshop about, I can't think of the name of the whole workshop, but it is on our website under workshop archives if you want to see it. And that's what helped me figure out how to make this play happen. So.
I had a poem that I published after that workshop too.
I just want to pop in and say that I think that the Saturday check-ins worked for so many reasons, but because they were so much in the spirit of Women Who Submit, the ethos that was in place already. Like you just created this extension of community and of absolutely unqualified support for one another, where you are, where your work is, what you're trying to do. And, I always talk about like the submission parties themselves and how radical and normal it felt to like just be in this group of women, everyone stating their goals for their work and what they wanted to put into the world, and then cheering each other on. Right? There's just something magic in saying, I just submitted, and everyone in the room doing that, but unmuted and in person. And so the Saturday mornings it was just a continuation of that, like I said, just unqualified support and just generosity of spirit that every woman that is part of this has brought to it. Everyone.
I just want to add that I thought that writing was a solo sport. I didn't realize how collaborative and connected and how important community was. And for a lot of residencies, for a lot of grants, for a lot of things, it requires a letter of recommendation. And if you're someone who just thinks it's a wild wilderness, you might not have those connections. So there's just been so many generous and kind souls within Women Who Submit who are willing to help create access, because if someone hasn't gone through an MFA program or another type of program that links them to other writers, it's just a wild wilderness, right? Like you can't see through the grass. So I think that's also something to speak to.
I don't know if most of our members would have a website without the workshop on Make a Writer's website. Like right now, I'm going to need somebody to help me. That was
Lijun Alvarado.
Yes.
Lijun Alvarado. Yep.
Yeah.
Also on our workshop archive on our website.
Which Tisha manages and keeps up. So thank you, Tisha, for doing that work for us.
Clearly why I keep plugging it, right? Go there, use it.
I also want to share that, like I said, I just finished some grants, and hopefully in 2023, we will get some money to create our third anthology. Transformation will be the, if you've noticed, we've got accolades, gathering. Next up will be transformation. So be on the lookout for that. That's exciting. And then also this summer coming up, we're going to return to our summer writers workshop, which we created in 2020 with help from Eastside Arts Initiative. I was really excited for that because I think summer workshops are a really good place to find a lot of these things we're talking about: mentorship, readers, collaborators, but they are really expensive, and they could be, they're expensive. You have to travel for them. A lot of our members are parents or caretakers. And then also it can be competitive getting in, or all these things, right? So I just liked that we were able to create access to that kind of environment in the summer of 2020, and we're bringing it back summer 2022. So that is coming soon. Do anybody in the room have questions for us? Oh, there we go. What can writers and creatives everywhere take away in terms of finding and building community? How do it, and what pitfalls to watch out for? How to do it and what pitfalls to watch out for?
I think one of the major components that makes women who submit so helpful is the ask for help part, and the non-competitive nature. Like, people are endlessly generous in this community in terms of offering like critiques of work or help with work. Like, oh, I'm wondering if anyone has, a resume they can share, or their application to this grant. And people just, here's my query that I sent, and this is how I got my agent, and this is what my agent contract looks like. These kinds of questions that come up, especially with emerging writers, that folks are just so willing to, number one, ask, that there's space for the ask, and then that you get numerous people offering support. I think that is incredible about our community.
In terms of pitfalls, I think that Women Who Submit is also unique in that we provide this community for women and non-binary writers for free. Everything is free. And I think that there are a lot of writing organizations out there that, because they don't have Sochi writing those grants constantly, that they do have to charge membership fees. And for some women and non-binary writers, that can be cost prohibitive. And not only does Women Who Submit offer the community free, the workshops are free, they're available to the public, they're accessible through for the hearing impaired. There's also opportunities for funding, both of which have escaped my brain at the moment, but Sochi will remember the names off the top of her head, right?
I missed what that last part, because I was thinking of something else to say.
Oh. There are two funding. Thank you, Flint. The Kit Reed Travel Fund and the Shaki Jackson
No Barriers grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have what are they called? We have re-grants. We have two types of re-grants within our organization, thanks to funders, and thanks to the grants that we've received, and also outside funders. So that's exciting. I also wanted to share, a pitfall. One thing we haven't really talked about is sustainability, right? This was going on every single week for over a year. And I basically started it, but then asking for help. I was like, okay, well, who wants to lead the next one? Because I can't keep doing this. So I would ask for help from people. And then when I finally hit a wall, I was like, I can't do this. And then people within the community said, no, we want to keep it going. So then now we have a committee of people who keep it going on a bi-monthly basis. And so sustainability, I think, is really important. You don't want to burn yourself out. I mentioned earlier in 2020, we came out with an anthology. We created a summer workshop. We created our first ever conference. We created an online submission day through Instagram. I mean, we were doing like an insane amount of work. And then we got to the end of the year, like just burnt out. And we're like, what are we? Yeah, we can do it all, but do we have to, you know? And how are we going to break that up? And so we started having conversations about that. Like, we don't have to do everything all in 1 year. And so now we break things up every other year. So
And I think
like, how do you keep yourself sustainability?
Yeah. And I think in addition to that sustainability, like one of the things we noticed was that when we moved online, we started getting folks from all over the country who were tuning in, and to say, okay, so it is really helpful to have a local chapter, and giving those folks the tools to start their own chapters in their regions so that you can build that community when things, reopen. And so those submission parties, when we're all sitting back in rooms together and snapping our fingers, when we and applauding one another, those things can happen as well. And so please follow us on social medias, because that's a way to know all of these things that happen all of the time. Women who submit on Twitter, women who submit on Facebook, women who submit on Instagram.
And thank you, Flint. Yes, I it's hard when you're like on to remember, like to get all the names. So thank you, Laura Sturza, Romaine Washington, Deborah Brown are keeping up our Saturday check-ins to this day. Also Writing Alone Together, which was started by Elizabeth Koyman, where 2 parts of the day, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and I think 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. people can write in a Zoom room with other folks. Elizabeth Koyman started this. It's now on the West Coast and East Coast. And Colette Sartar and I think Deborah are also the ones who facilitate that. So we have a lot of people helping, and we are very lucky to have a lot of people helping each other, because I think we all know that we're all gaining so much from this community.
And I think right now, if you fall outside the category of women or non-binary writers and you're looking for creative community, like Meetup's a great resource. And there's so many different places right now that are still gathering online. So you might look at different things and see what kind of community you want to build based off what you heard today. And then also what else is out there. I've written with Literary Cleveland, with the Cabin in Idaho, not North Idaho. There's no North Idaho. But there's a variety of places. So you can just start to look at communities and see where those areas blend, or maybe even gather and create your own online community.
And I think there is something to be said for affinity spaces, finding folks who, women who submit is for women and non-binary writers, like that's just the deal. And it does create a different space, being a space that is for women and non-binary writers. So, if you're looking for a community, start where you're comfortable, start where you feel like you will be safe and appreciated and welcome and embraced.
Any other questions from those with us here? Any questions we have for each other?
I'm just wondering when we're getting the sourdough delivery from Colette.
Right.
I've been waiting on that for a while.
And
I feel like there was a fruit polenta upside down cake.
I made one. It was the only thing.
I made one too. But
I'm
still,
usually the one all
someone
focused
else
on food, you guys.
making it is what I need in my life.
I just want to cover. I wanted to cover that. Yes, in September we have a submission drive. We've been doing it for I think 8 years. It's now called Submit One, and it's the one day a year we encourage women non-binary writers across the nation, across the world, to submit to Tier 1 journals. I don't necessarily mean that like everyone should be always going for Tier 1 top journals, the New Yorker, but it's our one day a year to really push for that kind of visibility and to get our names across those editors' desks. And so you can participate with us in that drive on our Instagram. And so that's always a fun day that we do a bunch of stuff on Instagram, especially now, and we submit.
Sakaya asks, how do folks find ways to join chapters? Also, do you put out a monthly report with pubs seeking submissions?
Tisha, you should answer that question.
I knew you were going to say that. So the first answer is yes, on the website, there is a link that says join us, and it has all the information about chapter options. And on the website, under the tab that says resources, there is a calendar of call for submissions. It is not an exhaustive list, but there are, it's whatever comes into my inbox, then I kind of parse it out it comes out the first Saturday of the month. The first Saturday of each month, there will be a listing of what has deadlines in that month. So enjoy that, use it. It's open to everybody. Our website is accessible to the public.
It is an amazing resource. Check out that calendar.
We also share open calls. Sakai is our Instagram editor, and they share open calls on Instagram. I do Twitter, and if anyone tweets at Women Who Submit an open call, I'll just repost it. So there's a lot of open calls on our social media as well.
That's great. That's great. If I could ask one question, I think you mentioned transformation is the next title that you're looking at. What would you like to see in terms of transformation of the literary and publishing world? What are you working towards? What do you want to have happen?
Monica Prince needs to run the world. She's like the Santa Fe writing project, and she has really helped guide the process over there at Santa Fe Writers in a way that is really more inclusive to underrepresented writers. Really helping a press that was started by a cis white man to steer into a way that makes a press more inclusive. And they have been doing it by doing these very focused issues. What did you call them? I can't remember the word. Anyway, they are doing themed issues to help, thank you, amplify different voices within the literary community. So that is one way that our publishing industry could shift.
I think that is great. That theme that is going to be for our third issue was actually inspired by Elena Maria Viramontes' keynote address at AWP 2020 in San Antonio. And it's designed to inspire work that promotes justice and dismantles harmful structures and really captures the way that the kind of resistance to systems that hold us in bondage. And it's our hope that we will we will get work that speaks to the way writers and other artists can promote change in the world, like what Noriko just talked about.
I also feel like what I work for a lot is that I want to help people feel empowered to go into those spaces, to challenge gatekeepers. I don't want us to keep uplifting gatekeepers. I want us to uplift the variety of work that can be in the world and the way it looks and how we publish it and how we put it in readers' hands. And so I want to empower people to challenge those things. And because I'm just so tired I've been in those spaces, we've all been in those spaces where there's some white dude telling us how it's supposed to be, and we feel small. And that's what I want to change, let's challenge all that and change it up.
Thank you, Sochi, Tisha, Hazel, Thea, Noriko, Flint. This has been, I feel like I'm witnessing a wave that's not even cresting, it's just building and building and building. And I have no doubt that the future is bright for all of your members and even for other writers who now can look to you as an example and find ways to be creative and uplifted even in dark times. So thank you for gathering here with us tonight. I do want to shout out the next event that we have coming up, which, as Mike mentioned, is Trans Future Poetics. It's on April 6th at 6 p.m., also via Zoom, also via YouTube. And we'll be hearing from Rika Aoki and Harry Josephine Giles in conversation with Ava Dadvand and Simba the Poet. And all of that thanks to the fabulous and brilliant current poet laureate of the city of West Hollywood, Brian Sonia Wallace. Thank you so much to Women Who Submit and its members for being here tonight. I hope that you all that you just coast on the rest of this week and into the future. Ahoy.
Thank you, Cody.